So with everything going on in the world right now, we've got Antifa starting riots, we've got riots in France over taxes getting raised, we've got our own Department of Homeland Security here in the United States saying, hey, our energy grid, our electrical grid is a prime target for terrorism and other nation states that might seek to do us harm. You should be prepped to get by for 6 months without power. You should have your food. You should have your water. And as far as I personally am concerned, you should have guns and ammo to protect yourself and your loved ones if anything bad does happen. Even if it's so much as a hurricane or a tornado or anything that might come along and disrupt your life, you never know what types of people might take advantage of those situations, and you need to be able to protect yourself. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about prepper guns. I'm going to give you guys my top 5 list of prepper guns in the order that I think they are the best option, the best choice. Now, this isn't a list of 5 guns I would say to build your prepping arsenal, because quite honestly, these 5 guns together wouldn't be my first choice to put together a prepping arsenal. But if you can only have one gun, these are the first 5 guns I would look at before looking at anything else. And that's basically what we're going to be talking about here today. So here we go. Let's go ahead and jump right into the top 5 prepping guns. All right, and in number 5, we have pistol caliber carbines. And I like these for a lot of reasons, but primarily because you take good, cheap, affordable, available ammunition, pistol ammunition, in this case 38 or 357, and in this case 9mm, and you're putting it into a package, a platform that makes the most out of that round. You're turning a 9mm into a hunting caliber. Same thing with 357 or 38 special. You're turning these into something that could take a deer if you needed it to do so. So you got a lot of options with something like this. Obviously there are many different types of pistol caliber carbines out there on the market. There are AR versions, AK versions, you've got Kel-Tecs, you've got lever actions, you've got your Beretta CX4 Storms that are still out there on the secondary market. You've got a lot of options when it comes to pistol caliber carbines. Ruger's new carbine is fantastic as well. So there are a lot of options out there, a lot of ways that you can pick something like this up for $450, give or take, brand new. Stock up on a bunch of ammo and be pretty good to go in just about any scenario you might run into. All right, and for number 4, I'm going to go with the AK-47. Now, I will say that if I did have this other rifle currently in my collection, it would be on the table with this tied at number 4, and that would be the SKS. But by and large, the AK-47 I think makes a little more sense for most people. It's a little bit more of a modern design, just slightly. It is slightly more modular, magazine fed, as opposed to a box magazine that only holds 10 rounds. You can get 30. Swap out grips, make it a little more custom to yourself and what's going to work for you. And it is just a good, durable, reliable platform. I mean, really the only downside to it is the ammo, but you can kind of fix that ahead of time by stocking up on ammo. Now, what I mean by that is if you are talking about for a prepping rifle in a really bad situation where you can't go to the store and buy more ammo, obviously 7.62x39 is going to be a little bit harder to get a hold of than some other calibers out there on the market, simply because there's really only a couple of firearms that people use here in the United States that use that round, whereas if you were in Europe or Russia or somewhere else, obviously that round would be much more plentiful than it is here today. So that's really the only downside, but it's not really a downside because 7.62 is still ridiculously available now. And like I said, it's very cheap, and you can stock up now as opposed to having to worry about it later on. And you can pick up a good AK-47 for $600 or less. So they are kind of on the rise. They are a little bit more expensive than they used to be, there's no doubt about that, but you can still get a good, reliable AK-47 for a decent price and then go spend a few $100s stocking up on some ammo for it as well. All right, here we are, number 3. We've got the AR-15 or your M-Forgeries or whatever you want to call it, right? Just a good, modular, dependable American rifle that's very easy to find parts and magazines and ammo for. It's basically everything the AK is and then a little bit more because we're in the United States. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, that's why this one runs ahead of the AK-47 in terms of where it falls on this list, because I'm in the United States. Parts and ammo and magazines for this are far more available than they are for an AK-47. It's just a good, solid rifle. I mean, it is a tried and true design since the 1950s. Militaries have been using this, civilians have been using this, hunters have been using this. It's just a good rifle. There's not a whole lot to say about it. Nowadays, especially, you can put together a good, decent mil-spec AR-15 for $450 to $500 if you build it yourself. They're very easy and modular to build. There's no reason you can't do one. You can spend $500 on a rifle. go buy a few cases of ammo and be good to go, knowing you've got whatever you need to handle any situation you might come across in a prepping scenario. All right, and at number 2, we have a good old-fashioned 12-gauge pump shotgun right here. I've got a Mossberg 500. That's my personal preference, but whatever works for you, Remington 870, Mossberg 590, whatever it is, good, solid, pump action, 12-gauge, you're pretty much going to be good to go after that. Now look, I know a lot of people are going to get upset and say, why wasn't the AR-15 ahead of the 12-gauge? I get it. In my mind, they were going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, but when it came time to really make this list, ultimately I had to give the number 2 spot to the 12-gauge shotgun for one simple reason. The fact that it is not a semi-automatic, it's pump action, it has less moving parts, less likely to have failures, it's going to be a little more reliable when it's getting beat around, and the ammo. The ammo is such an important thing to understand when it comes to 12 gauge. You can literally reload 12 gauge if you have the right components with a block of wood and a rock, okay? If you've got some powder and some primers, you can use torn up T-shirts for your wad. You can fill it with corn, with pebbles, with anything as a projectile. That ability to be able to reload so easily ammunition in a prepping scenario, I think is so very, very important. And again, going back to the reliability of a good pump action shotgun cannot be underestimated. And so while yes, it's not going to reach out the way an AR-15 is. It doesn't have the magazine capacity of an AR-15 or an AK-47 or even the carbines we were looking at. It's such an incredibly durable and reliable and effective tool, and so easy to maintain and reload in a prepping scenario. It really has to be up close to the top of the list. So there you go. Good pump action 12 gauge shotgun is my number 2 on the list. And in at number 1, which should come as no surprise to anybody that watches my channel, I've got just a good handgun. And yes, I know I can feel the shock and awe from people watching this. I get it, you know. Well, what about hunting, and what about needing to take long distance shots, and what about this and what about that? And look, I know I talked about hunting and stuff like that earlier in the list, but what it really comes down to is what gun has the highest likelihood of being there when you need it. Because again, you go back to, you know, scenarios where the power grid goes down or whatever. You know, there are going to be other ways to hunt. There are going to be other ways to find and scavenge for food. And hopefully you're preparing yourself ahead of time for any sort of bad scenarios as well. But you need something that's going to be on you at all times to protect you from people who might want to hurt you or your family. And there is no other gun that can be with you at all times like a handgun can be. It can be with you when you're on the toilet. It can be with you when you're in a vehicle, when you're climbing a tree, when you're walking your yard, when you're in your home. It can be with you 24/7, whether you're awake, whether you're asleep. It can be right there at your fingertips in ways other guns just can't be. And that's why I have to put it at number 1 on this list. So there you go, guys. There's my list. Pistol caliber carbines, AK-47s, AR-15s, a good 12 gauge pump action shotgun, and just a good reliable handgun where you've stocked up on some ammo, you've got some magazines for it, and you're ready to go. That is it, guys. I appreciate you watching. You got any questions, comments, leave it down below, and we will talk to you guys later.